Marianne plummeted into depression. To make matters worse, Spencer then published articles on female ugliness. Big noses, big chins, big foreheads, all depressingly familiar to Marianne. But even this crushing rejection didn't cool her passion. Marianne's attachment to Spencer was fierce. In despair, she wrote to him. Until very recently, these letters were kept under lock and key in the British Library. Before his death, Spencer instructed that 2 of Marianne's letters should be sealed until 1985. Their contents shed some light on the relationship and revealed to what desperate measures Marianne would go to hold on to the man she thought she loved.
If you became attached to someone else, then I must die. I do not ask you to sacrifice anything. I would be very good and cheerful and never annoy you. You will find that I am satisfied with very little.
Other desperate pleas followed, and Spencer escaped to Europe. But at least he had the grace to protect her reputation by concealing these terribly sad letters. When Marianne finally met her soulmate, nothing would stop her from holding on to him. The scandal that would cast her as a fallen woman and homewrecker was about to explode.
He may call himself a Christian, but Disraeli still can't be trusted on anything Jewish. He cannot conceal his true origins.
Hath not a Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases? One of my greatest intellectual mentors and friends was a Mr. Cohen. It pained me to see he and his family in pinching poverty because of social persecution. I would advise you to uproot your prejudices, but I fear, sir, there would be nothing of you left.
If Herbert Spencer was one of the cleverest men in London, then George Henry Lewis was one of the plainest. But it would take more than oily skin and an oversized head to put Marianne off. With a wife thrown in for good measure, this was the one man she was sure to find irresistible.
Of course, Mr. Lewis is one person that poor Marian Evans can claim to be more attractive than.
Immensely ugly, like an ape.
So small for that ridiculous head.
I hear he tells lewd jokes in a most sensual manner.
But not only was Lewis married, he was still involved in one of the longest-running sex scandals in literary London. Only 4 of the Lewis children were actually fathered by him. The others were fathered by one of his best friends. Amazingly, he always publicly accepted and supported all of the children as his own.
Smile. Children, there is nothing to be frightened of. We must be ebullient. Her Majesty's bloomers are larger than schooners, beautifully bright they glow in the night to those bountiful bouncing bloomers. Smile.
Marianne's friends were appalled by her attraction to this little man with his risque comments and vulgar stories.
He wrote on a vast range of subjects: literature, science, the theatre, philosophy, and of course there were the novels and the plays. He also acted himself. He was a linguist and a pioneer in the subject of psychology and the natural sciences. He possessed quite the most learned and able mind of anybody that I have known. He was bold enough to be a Renaissance man and to love me.
After a brief and intense affair, Marianne and Lewis decided to run away together. This momentous decision would brand her for the rest of her life as a fallen woman. She was risking everything for love.
Dear friends, I have only time to say goodbye, and God bless you. Weimar and afterwards Berlin. I do none of this lightly. Love, Marion.
She was committing a huge crime against every moral code in Victorian society. He was married, and they would be living in sin. This must have taken incredible courage and conviction.
Light, easily broken ties I neither desired nor could live with. Women who are satisfied with such ties do not act as I did. I was perfectly prepared to accept the consequences of my actions, and to accept them without irritation or bitterness.
Well, it is bad enough that she is openly... Oh, how can I put this? Living with a man outside marriage, but to take him away from his wife and children.
Unforgivable.
She will be an outcast.
A fallen woman is like a rudderless ship in the night. It will all go badly for her, as it should, as Providence would have it.
In The Mill on the Floss, Maggie Tulliver elopes with her cousin's fiancé. In this fictional adventure, Marianne plays out the moral dilemmas of elopement and infidelity.
I'm not going. We must part here.
Maggie?
I've been weak, selfish and hard. I failed Lucy and Philip.
The blow has been struck against them both. If you go back now, you'll achieve nothing. Except strike another blow against me. You cannot do that. Not now.
I've never embraced this. I've let myself drift. Stephen, this has not been my true will.
On her return to London, Marian would find the gulf between herself and respectable society impossible to bridge. In 1859, she came to the quiet London suburb of Wimbledon. But she was living with a man outside of marriage. Even the most liberal Victorians would find this hard to tolerate, let alone the nice middle-class families who lived here. So Marian insisted on their being known as Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. In her own mind, at least, this was a true marriage. Marian moved here to this house and lived an isolated and anxious life in these London suburbs. She expected to lose acquaintances, but not her close friends and family. She wrote to her beloved brother Isaac.
You will be surprised, I dare say, but I hope not sorry, to learn that I have changed my name and have someone to take care of me in this world.
But Isaac was disgusted that she was living in sin with a married man. He cut her out of his life completely. When Maggie Tulliver returns home after her brief elopement, her brother is also unforgiving.
I'm not as guilty as you believe me to be.
You've disgraced us. Disgraced our father's name.
I repented bitterly. I want to make amends.
There can be no amends.
I'm here. I've come home.
There is no home for you here. Your behavior, your deception, disgusts me. The very sight of you is hateful.
Marian treasured her life with Lewis, but she paid a high price. She was totally isolated and despised.
I've not been to town more than twice since last spring. Once to call on Mr. Chapman, and once to call on the mollusks in the zoological gardens.
Polly, my dear.
Mr. Lewis, who affectionately now calls me Polly, goes to town once a week, and he does any errands for me.
Polly, my dear.
Bread, butter, ink, potatoes, the new translation of the Divine Comedy, soap, John Donne's Sermons from St. Paul's, and a mousetrap.
Yes, a mousetrap.